Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran jazz guitarist Larry Newcomb. We caught up with him in February to talk about his newest 2021 CD, Love Dad, with his quartet featuring his son, Jake. Larry is considered one of the top all-around guitarists on the scene today and has played in a wide variety of settings during his productive career. But his true love is modern straight-ahead jazz. While attending the University of Maine, he became interested in jazz and never looked back. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
Great. Thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No worries.
Your latest CD with your quartet, Love Dad, just sounds like it was a fun project, especially during these times of pandemic and, unrest in the world. It just sounds like this was probably a really good time, and I could just sense it off of the recording.
Oh, I'm glad you could pick that up. Yeah, that's definitely the energy behind it. We were very fortunate that I did the composing. I moved to Gainesville, Florida, which I used to live. I was in New York for 20 years. Moved back to Gainesville. Had to find a studio. Had to find a great pianist. Already had a bass player, but my son. I didn't have to look too hard for him. He had a wonderful former Miami superstar drummer that has moved to Gainesville, I guess probably 15 years ago, and I've already done gigs with them, so the drummer was wasn't hard to find. But we got the band well rehearsed, and we got everything ready, and we recorded before the pandemic hit, just before the pandemic became a reality.
I have a lot of trust with Carol Green as manager. I formerly worked with her sister, who I met at a conference in New York City. I would go to the Jazz Conference every year. And they're just a wonderful pair, and we have a very nice working relationship. Unfortunately, Janet passed away about 2 years ago, and then I began working with Carol directly. And and she said, hold off, we'll release this thing late December, get it out, start the campaigns late December, start the radio campaign basically January 22nd through Kate Smith, who another person I've got a lot of experience with and a lot of trust with. Quite amazed at how good she and her team do. And I said, okay, we'll go with this, because I wanted to get it out there. So far, the results have been very pleasing because we're getting lots of radio play, lots of stations. In the top 50 on the Roots, Blues, and Jazz charts. We're on the Jazz Week charts. We moved up 14 points from 94 to 80 last week, and so by tomorrow morning I'll see if hopefully we went up. And an interesting thing happened I want to talk about in the pandemic, regarding the pandemic, is just before the pandemic, my son Jake Newcomb and I did a gig at a place here in Gainesville, a local place. It's actually a pretty amazing, fancy pizza place, which is based on all kinds of nostalgia. They have stuff from the 50s and 60s, and it's just an incredibly creative, singular, one-of-a-kind place. They also have a very nice stage, very nice sound system, and they also play you through Facebook live stream when you perform. So we had a gig there, and I found out about how to plug into Facebook live stream. I don't know a whole lot about digital technology, but it seemed like, now that there's a pandemic, Jake, why don't we do a live stream? What it quickly turned into, and the technology was working for me at my limited knowledge of technology, but we started doing what we call Saturday afternoon jazz, every Saturday, 2:30 to 3:15 Eastern time, where we, the two of us play as a duo, and I love guitar-bass duos. My first exposure to jazz was Jim Hall and Ron Carter, their landmark album, Alone Together. And I also had a wonderful hotel gig in New York City playing guitar-bass duo with Dmitri Kolesnik. I just love that genre. And so we started doing this thing. This Saturday it will be the 45th episode we've only missed 1 week because we got bounced off. I think similarly to the way our calls have been bounced off today.
Yeah.
We just got bounced off, and it was kind of a shock. But it didn't. Okay, we got a week off, but we're back on, and we just have a blast with it. And I call it COVID, Comfort, and Beyond, and I spell Beyond with like real big capital letters. But the mission is and the intent is to offer comfort to people who are suffering like we all are. And there's people who are stuck at home. There's people who are not feeling well. There's all the uncertainty that's going on. And music for me is the greatest healing force, or one of, anyway. So we just offer that. We put it out there. We're not buying Maseratis, yet. We get tips, but we get a lot of people saying, hey, you're making our week, and we look forward to this every week, and we're just getting a lot of feedback. I was just listening to Andy Jaffe's interview, which I really, really enjoyed. That interview you guys did. He was talking about how jazz really depends on the interaction, artist to artist, and also artist to the audience. You have to complete that cycle, that circle, for that energy to flow, like for the electricity to get plugged in, for the energy to flow. We don't necessarily get that in real time when we're playing, because we're playing into my computer screen. Yeah. And I have a pretty nice sound system. I have a nice interface. I have some nice condenser mics, and we've kind of learned how to tweak the sound. We usually get a very good sound, but we don't have that eye contact, which I've grown to love. But what we do get is people commenting, and they're saying, "Sounds great," and "Thank you so much," and "You're making my day," and "I feel a whole lot better," and that kind of thing. So I feel the mission for the CD is really to do the same thing. And I think the music has that healing component, that loving component, because I'm playing with my son, and I adore this guy. We've been through a lot. I mean, he was my younger of two sons from my first marriage, and that there was that whole process to go through and be a single dad, but to fast forward to the present day. His mom, my former wife and friend, is at every show we do and every live stream and having a blast. I guess they like they say, God can turn difficulties into magic.
Well, speaking of magic, how did all this start for you? How did you get into jazz? How did it become a fascination for you?
I was always fascinated by music. I was just really open to it. It always blew me away. It was like, as a young kid riding in the car, I'd hear, especially guitar, I'd hear that sound. And electric guitar was, I'm dating myself. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. Electric guitar was becoming very popular, very prominent on pop radio. And my ears would always go right to the guitar. And then people were talking about, there's solid body guitars and hollow body guitars and guitars. And then, Elvis. I wasn't really tuned into Elvis. I was too young. But I was just into music. I was 5 years old, and I would go down to my basement and play stuff like T for Two on my kazoo, holding that in my mouth, and then playing percussion with my hands, just experiencing the flow of music and that joy. And then when I was 8 years old, an accordion salesman came to our house, Long Island, New York, and he said, "Well, I can give your son a musical aptitude test, and if he scores well, he could take lessons at our studio." Well, guess what? I scored well on I guess probably anybody would. I scored well on the test, and I started accordion lessons. Actually, referring to Andy's, interview, I practiced every single day, and I had lessons every single week. And I really dug it, and yet I was and I could read, and I could play, but I was mostly drawn to improvising. So what I would do is, when my mother would be cooking dinner, getting dinner ready at about 6 o'clock in the evenings, I'd come down with my accordion and music stand, and I'd say to her, "Hey, Mom, this is what I'm working on for my lesson," and then I would just make something up, for about a half an hour. It's just a joy. So I did that. Then the Beatles, and then to fast forward, the Beatles came out. I managed to get my parents to let me stop taking lessons for a few years. I played baseball relentlessly, and I loved that. But then the Beatles came out in '64, and that was it. I had to be a guitar player. I finally got my hands on a guitar because my brother was allowed to have a guitar because I had accordion, and he put it in his closet after about a week, and then it was like, I'm going to play that guitar, and I learned it. Very poor, very bad guitar, but I learned to play on it. And then one of the coolest things my mom ever did was she said, "How much money do you have saved up for cutting lawns?" I cut lawns for $1.25 an hour back then, working with a lawn company. And I said, "I got about $100. She said, "Get in the car. I'm taking you to get an electric guitar of your choice." Brightest memories I have of a wonderful relationship with my mom. And I'm still at it, I'm still practicing.
Yeah.
Still love it.
Yeah. What do you miss the most from that old world? What are you going to look forward to the most when you get back to live music?
Well, I've had the occasion to do a couple of live gigs recently with masks and et cetera. It just feels so good. Or just even to go to somebody's house. There's a pianist that Jake and I like to play with, Howard Wapner here in Gainesville. Very fine jazz pianist. We play outside, and it's Florida, so we can do that. It feels so good to play with. I love playing with Jake, and that really satisfies me. He plays. He lives about 4 minutes away, and we play together 3 times a week. So I'm very, very, very gifted, very fortunate to have that gift. But just playing with Howard was, oh boy, this is good. And then I've done a couple of live things that, oh man, I missed that. It's sort of like if you're in the desert dying of thirst and someone shows up with water. So when things open up, I really want to try and, just really enjoy it, really go about it with a sense of balance, which is sometimes hard to do. I sometimes want it all too quickly. No, it's like, let's go about this with a sense, I have a lot in my life to balance. So, and I think this will balance well. In fact, we got together with yesterday we had a very beautiful experience. My son and I, Jake, were hired to back up a young man from the University of Florida who's a jazz singer, and he's involved with the University of Florida jazz program. He also studied music theater when he was younger. A very talented guy, and he hired us. And we had our first rehearsal yesterday, and we have an online show for celebrating Black History Month Friday night, and we just had a blast playing. And so this is really great stuff. So I think it's going to. Other things are already on the calendar. I think it's going to open back up slowly, and I'm looking forward to it.
Let's say you have a dream tonight and you run into your younger self around the time you started playing live gigs for the first time, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice. What would it be?
Keep loving this. Keep practicing. Don't compare yourself to other people, other players, and put your fears aside. If you do what you love, and you bring that quality to it, you bring that consistency to it, it will unfold beautifully.
What was the first live jazz show you saw that really blew your doors down?
Well, and now with Chick passing away, I have to say, it wasn't the first live jazz show, but one of the most powerful for me was I saw Return to Forever in 1975 at the Berkeley Community Theater, which is a beautiful venue, and it's not very large, so really there's no bad seats there. We were in the balcony. We were very, very close over the stage. Very good seats. And it just, I was blown away by the energy and the synchronicity and just the beauty of what they were doing. So that was a great one.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, that you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
I know you asked Andy that question.
Yeah.
Let's see. And I didn't really get prepared for that. But I think, well, my wife has a different perspective than, people who don't know me as well, because she's seen all sides of me. It's like, she's my second wife and present wife. We've been together nearly 30 years, and I was single for 10 years between. And, it was important to me to show who I was to anybody, not on the first date, mind you, but, eventually I wanted to be with somebody who I could show who I was, and I've done that. And she's seen all sides, and I've seen a lot of sides of her, and we're still together. We're still working on it. And so that's a wonderful gift. I think people see me as, okay, forgive me if I'm wrong, but people see me as intelligent, hardworking, and a very, very fine player, and a very kind person.
Yeah. Well, final question for you is this. When we do return to the stage, when you get on stage and we get in the audience, what do you hope we all realize about this long absence from live music that's lasting, that we hold on to?
Well, I sure hope that people will feel like I feel, and that you feel, and that many of us feel, is that this is a treasure. This live music is a treasure, and this is something not to be taken lightly or dismissed, or like, oh yeah, same old, oh yeah, there's a bunch of guys playing again. But to really, so I guess to put in a singular word, appreciation.
Beautiful, I agree. Larry, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. Good luck with the album and the return to the stage.
And yes, and all the best to you, Joe, and everything you're doing.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Maine, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Larry for his time, honesty, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.